You have forgotten something.
Just a minute. We're picking up an emergency signal now. Are we still in the air? Station IO is dispatching hospital ships, but it doesn't seem possible that anyone could have survived that kind of
Shut it off.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Great Council.
And so it begins.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast, a part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. And we are here today to talk about the season finale of season 1 of Babylon 5, which is Chrysalis. We are a group of newbies and those who have watched the show all the way through. The first segment we're going to have is going to be with the newbies, and we're going to talk about Chrysalis and what has happened before Chrysalis, but nothing after Chrysalis. Whereas in afterwards, the ones who have watched the show throughout all 5 seasons, we will talk about spoilers once we get the newbies off of the show. We're going to hear from a few less people tonight because of the holiday season. We've got a few folks away, but Kevin and I will be recording Beyond the Rim segment with Mike and Blake later on. So when you hear the introductions and don't hear Mike and Blake, but then all of a sudden Mike and Blake show up at the end, that's why. So I'm Scott, and with me as always is
Kevin,
Emily,
Jessi,
Andrew,
Nicole,
and John.
And before we dive into Chrysalis, let's take a moment to read another one of our reviews that came over on Apple Podcasts. We got this one from A. Murray. Gray 17 podcast has me hooked. I watched B5 when it first aired, and all the excitement after watching of trying to figure out what was important and how it all fit together. All we had then was the Lurker's Guide. The mix of new viewers and veteran B5 watchers is great. I'm rewatching the series with my husband, who is a newbie. It's great to revisit this series from start to finish with someone or someones who hasn't experienced it before. Great work. Expect it will only get better as things heat up on the show. Thanks, A. Murray. And if you can, please leave a comment or review on your podcast app of choice. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and hit that like button and the notify button so you can be made aware when our new shows drop. And if you can, the best thing to get the show out there to more people is to use Apple's review process. So if you are listening on Apple, or even if you're not listening on Apple, if you can go over to Apple and give us a review, we would really, really appreciate it. Along with that, we also have our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Gray17podcast. If you're willing to do a little bit more and help the show grow, we have several tiers over there, including those that allow you access to our Discord, as well as to our behind the scenes note. And if you can go all the way, we do have our producers who are supporting our show at the highest level, and you can see the list of producers down in the show notes below. Let's go ahead and dive into Chrysalis. And Andrew, I believe you have a plot synopsis for us this week.
Indeed I do. Season 1 finale of Babylon 5, Chrysalis. Jakar's and Londo's feud comes to a head as they argue over who owns Quadrant 37. It is occupied by the Narn, but Londo believes it is Centauri territory. Londo enlists Mr. Morden for help in claiming it. Meanwhile, Garibaldi learns that the president's life may be in danger after losing one of his informants, and Delenn prepares for some sort of transformation and wants to reveal to Sinclair the truth about what happened during those 24 hours he doesn't remember from Battle Up the Line.
Thank you, Andrew. We started doing that, by the way, because we had somebody on our Facebook ask us, because they're listening to us and not actually watching the show, for those synopsises. So thanks to our Facebook folks for giving that feedback. And if you want to join us on our social medias, you can go to either Twitter, Gray 17 Podcast, Instagram, Gray 17 Podcast, or Facebook, groups / Gray 17 podcast. So we have folks giving feedback and having conversations on all three of those, so you should check them out. Let's go ahead and do our first impressions from our newbies, and we'll go to Emily first. First impressions on Chrysalis.
There was a lot going on in this episode, and the one thing that stuck out to me was Delin promised something to Kosh, which seemed like a really odd pairing. And Kosh seems to know something about Delin's future, maybe? I'm not sure. But I was really interested by that little bit in there amongst everything else that was going on.
Cool. Jessi, first impressions.
Holy fucking shit. This whole episode was like so much. There was so much going on. There was like 17 plots. I don't feel like we got any of them answered either. So classic season finale. It was exciting and fun. And I finally, for the first time, probably all season, have about 17 questions. So I enjoyed it. I'm really super excited. I almost started watching season 2, but I'm going to wait until after today to do that.
Oh, bueno. Don't do it yet.
I know.
Do it yet.
I know.
Points of departure will come soon enough.
I wanted to.
Let's go over to Nicole next. First impressions.
So this was a huge episode. There was a lot of what the fucks in my written down and audibly said. I thought it was kind of dark and kind of bleak and just really kind of negative. And it was kind of sad, to be honest, I thought. I mean, it was exciting and there was a lot of good stuff and it was real juicy, but it left a lot of unanswered questions. And it really just had like a dark tone to it, I thought. It kind of made me really feel a little sad. Like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like it was like informative, but also like left you with questions, you know, like some stuff was kind of covered and then some was like, wait, what the hell? What's going on? So overall, I'm going to say it was really good. It was really jam-packed, but it was really confusing. I have a lot of questions and I thought it was just a little bleak and dark.
Well, as Sinclair says, nothing is the same anymore.
And that's what made me sad at the end. I was like, oh God, that just got me, that line.
John, first impressions.
Yeah, I'll start by echoing Nicole's sentiment. I wrote that in one of my notes at the end that for a season finale, it was very bleak and, you know, it was a lot of doom and gloom and, you know, a lot of shit happening. I will say, glad to see Londo back after an absence. Love me some Londo. And this episode didn't disappoint in terms of hilarious lines and great acting. Obviously, some of his, I guess I shouldn't say some of his choices, but his choice. You know, I wrote down, you know, when you do a deal with the devil, what do you expect is going to happen? So it was a little not from a boy, Londo, in that respect. Good episode overall. Interesting to have so many cliffhangers. You know, something that I think we've talked about very briefly in the beginning. I think, Scott, you've hit on a couple of times, but, you know, I think watching this in 2022, I think we take for granted the serialized nature of the show. And that wasn't really not only not the case, but frowned upon a lot in television because it was thought, you know, you wouldn't be able to get viewers or keep viewers or bring new people in because they'd be lost, et cetera. And so not only has this show obviously been so serialized, but to have a finale with so many cliffhangers, it basically says, you know, there's no resolution here. You got to come back for season 2 because so much stuff is hanging in the balance. I thought it was an interesting choice and something, you know, we could talk about later. Again, overall, great. Packed a lot in a short amount of time. You know, usually with finales, sometimes they nowadays as well can be like supersized episodes because there's so much left to get in. And I found myself checking the time, how much time was left when we got down to like 15 minutes, 10 minutes of the episode. I thought, man, there's a lot going on here. But overall, I liked it. I'll save some of my more in-depth thoughts for when we talk about the different plot lines. But what a way to end the first season. Definitely has me waiting until we can finish recording this so I can watch the first season or the first episode of season 2 so I know what the hell's going on. But
we'll probably get into more of this meta conversation as we get deeper into season 2. But to your point, John, What I will say is when JMS came to the table on this to WB and to PTEN and said, I've got a 5-year story I want to tell, the studio was not sure it was going to work for many reasons. One, PTEN was a syndicated network, so they knew depending on where you were in the country or in the world, you may catch the episodes out of order. You may not be able to catch all the episodes because they may be, and they were, preempted by NBA games and local football games and whatever. So they were very hesitant about letting JMS be completely serialized. And I think as you'll see, moving into season 2, he starts to get a lot less studio notes, and he's able to do more go from episodic to serial. So I think you're going to see that that's going to change quite a bit in season 2. I won't say exactly where, because that would be almost a spoiler in itself. But as we get deeper into season 2, you will start feeling this to be more of what we're used to in terms of serialized television. We'll put it that way. Let's go to Andrew for his first impressions.
Yeah, so holy shit, this is exactly what I wanted Babylon 5 to be. Just all these intricate plot lines kind of all weaving in and out of each other. I thought the same thing as John with the whole Londo going to Mr. Morden for help. It was kind of like a deal with the devil sort of situation. And now with leaving this episode, I have more questions than ever about who this guy is. And yeah, Delenn, I really thought we were going to find out what was going to happen with Sinclair during the Battle of the Line, but still never did. So yeah, I just add that to the questions.
Kevin, what are your first impressions on Chrysalis?
This is your, fairly standard, 90s season cliffhanger. But John, and Scott, you're totally right. The serialized television was definitely not a thing, but the cliffhanger over the summer was, although I don't think B5 took its hiatus over the summer. But so this is, a fairly pivotal episode. There was a lot of questions that came out of it. It's definitely a good episode. It is very jam-packed, start to finish. It doesn't really stop until the very end. I'll save the rest of that for Beyond the Rim and to go a little deeper when we get into that. But yeah, it's definitely a good episode for sure.
We may go just a little deeper into this episode Beyond the Rim. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be another half an hour Beyond the Rim. A couple things to that, Kevin. So you mentioned over the summer. Yeah, the airing of shows back then was a little different. So the season finale for season 1 was actually in August. Now, actually, if you watch this in the UK, and I know we have a lot of UK listeners and watchers, you actually didn't get Chrysalis until the start of season 2, because in the UK, August is kind of a dead time. So what they did was they ended on the penultimate episode, which I think was Eyes, back in the original airing. And then you didn't get Chrysalis until October, and it was actually dubbed as the first episode of season 2. So if you lived outside the United States, this wasn't a cliffhanger. This was episode 1 of season 2. So everyone sees this a little bit differently depending on where you're at. For me, I don't have many first impressions. You guys hit on most of them. I will say, just meta-wise, it's interesting to watch this episode as we're going through, because there's so much CGI in this episode. I think the station hasn't looked better in some of these close-up shots. They actually recorded this episode 12th in order production-wise. So this was recorded almost halfway through the season, and then they always knew it was going to be the final episode, but they had to wait so much for production time to happen that they recorded this a lot before. So I say that because it's really interesting how JMS can juggle all of these different plot lines that kind of coalesce here with Chrysalis, and will continue to coalesce as we go farther, because he had to write this script only 12 episodes in because of all the planned CGI and everything else. So I think it makes this episode a little stronger on the back end, just knowing how he had to back his way into it. So let's go ahead and start talking about the episode proper. John, go ahead.
Well, I really just wanted to follow up with your point there. I think we've seen it through the first season, kind of the I don't know a good word to describe, but you can tell that there's a disjointed feel to it. So because one of the notes I wrote, and made me think about it when you said, this was in 12, Sinclair's lady, which, by the way, shout out Sinclair for maybe the worst fucking proposal I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah. So you want to? And then she's like, yeah. And he's like, all right. And then he immediately turns away from her, doesn't kiss her, doesn't embrace her. He's like, you want some coffee? Like, I mean, just the worst thing I've ever seen. But so seeing her again pop back up made me think, since you're talking about when they were written or when they were produced versus when they were put in there, you know, she's been gone for a long stretch in the way we viewed it. And so I wonder, you know, when they were shooting it or how close, you know, those type of things kind of stand out more when you're not, you know, going in order. Overall, the Sinclair part, I will say, I have my beef with him, but his conversation with Jakar and his diplomacy is yet again very spot on. And you can see in certain instances like this, you can see why he is in charge, like why he became a leader of people, because of his instincts and how he uses them. Now, as we've joked many times, sometimes that leads him to just run headfirst into danger as if he is on a suicide mission. But more often than not, it tends to work itself out. And his conversation with Jakar, and, you know, my wonder of what would have happened had, you know, seemingly the new big bad guys not come and wiped out all the Narns, you know, how that conflict potentially could have been avoided just with one conversation with Jakar in a robe with, I got to give a shout out to Jakar. I know Mike's not here at the moment, but my man is out here putting up numbers on the ship. Okay. Just slamming space ass at an incredibly high rate. 3 ladies walking out. Listen, I love Londo, but, you know, at this moment between the two of you, you are a notch below, sir. I need to see something out of you because Jakar just, you know, he just put it up. So I'll take a break from that at the moment, but I thought that was incredible.
So a couple questions. First off, does Natoth just listen or does she watch as well? Because there was just the curtain between the 2 rooms. So she definitely heard what was going on. And yeah, maybe Natoph's just kind of a kinky individual. But also, I will stand much as I stood with the Londo having his eyes open when he kissed Adira. I think that's one of the best marriage proposals I've ever seen on TV because they're always so cliche. Get down on one knee, open up the box, show the ring. These are 2 living, breathing individuals who have been through a lot over the past 12 to 15 years, as Sinclair says. And he's just like, look, we've been doing this a long ass time. Want to move on? And yeah, cool.
And you could tell that he was, you know, playing the part, you know, as a nervous guy. And as a nervous guy, I can appreciate that. I mean, he just, you know, he turns around after she says yes because he's like, oh my God, what just happened? Kind of a
I didn't plan any farther ahead. What's going on?
It was cool. I agree, Scott. I liked it quite a bit.
Is that
possibly very real?
Does that explain the awkward kiss? Another note I wrote, listen, sci-fi not known for their love scenes and you know, being, I don't know, anything good. And this was no exception. That embrace, if you want to call it, that kiss, very awkward, very uncomfortable.
Well, again, it's got the best line ever, though. You want some coffee? No.
The fact that they've been together for 15 years and this is how he's asking her, no, sir.
But it's off and on though. We heard like they like gravitational bodies that come together and then separate again and come together and separate again. For some reason, they've been able to stick for almost a year because we know this is New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, so it's been almost a year this time that they've been able to keep a relationship going. So I don't know. I thought it was romantic.
To write me out a list of pros and cons. Because of 15 years, there's got to be a lot of cons. I need to review what has gone wrong over the last 15 years.
Well, he was abducted by Minbari and lost 24 hours of his existence. That's one.
Well, that's Monday.
That's Monday. Okay.
You say, do you want to get married? I mean, you can't just say anything. I to be honest, I thought it would have been funnier if she would have pretended like she didn't know what he was talking about, just to get at him.
No.
Like what? Have dinner? Have coffee? What are you talking about? Make him spell it out.
As Emily said to me when I was in high school, I'm a socially inept individual myself, and so I get the whole mapping on your head, not knowing what to say, and then losing your train of thought, and just like, screw it, I'm here.
That was not me. That was a substitute teacher in anthropology. We didn't disagree.
She usually says she has a bad memory, but she remembers that one.
Listen, not for nothing.
Oddly enough, yes, of the things I remember, that I can remember. Don't ask why.
Several of you on this show are engaged, or married, I mean. I pray and hope that your individual engagements or proposals did not go down like this. And Scott, I'm concerned for Amber now.
Should be, for many reasons.
This was a step above asking why you're on the crapper.
Hey, I'm sure that's happened before. I'm thinking Elvis may have done that, but
I just harassed.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Jen. Go ahead.
I just harassed my husband until he asked me to marry him because he was tired of me ruining vacations and holidays when I would find out we weren't getting engaged. I would absolutely throw a fucking fit.
She's the catch, ladies and gentlemen.
I am a catch. 5 years of marriage, 10 years of relationship. We're doing something okay.
Yeah, he listens to you.
Repeat after me. I am the problem.
John, as Kevin was alluding to with the nervousness, with my engagement, my wedding ring almost wound up in the Rock River. So, and there's a story behind that. So I would say it was an interesting experience.
I did not feel very well the next day, and I'm quite sure it was all nerves. I kept it together that day, and the next day I felt like garbage, and we were at a resort. So
she felt like garbage too for other reasons.
It could have gone better, but we are still married all these years later. So
what's the worst she can do is say no. Like, listen, I am a freaking catch. If you don't want to marry me, somebody else will.
Exactly.
Jessi, I tell myself that same thing. I'm a catch as I'm 38 and single again.
Hey, you know what? I didn't get married until 36. John, you're going to be okay. I promise.
That's less than 38.
Yeah, I don't know how that helps, but good job.
The point is, I was older too. You will find somebody that will deal with you on a lifetime basis. Maybe.
Okay, aside from bashing on Sinclair, anyone else have anything for this episode? Nothing really happened in this episode, so we may be done. I don't know.
I have all the stuff.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah,
so
I
I'm
do
not
too.
sure if I should save them for the question portion.
Yeah.
If we just start laying out all our questions, because there's a lot.
I think we can do a little bit of both. I think as long as Kevin's doing his little note taking, we can throw questions out when you want to, and because some of them we can I think some of them we can truly discuss without having to go beyond the rim, and some we won't have to, or some we will have to. So.
My biggest question is: was the vice president in on this assassination?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was someone on B5 security who knew what the hell was going on because he shot Garibaldi to keep him out of the way.
Did you all recognize him, by the way?
He was really familiar. Why do I know him?
Because he's been planted in about 4 episodes the entire season. He's the guy.
Background security?
Yes, he's the guy who let Bester on in Mine War. He's the guy who did the investigation into the guy and said there's nothing wrong with his bank account. And then Garibaldi's like, well, there's 15,000 credits that just popped up. That's not wrong. This guy's
absolutely a plant.
Yeah, you go back. This is what I love about Babylon 5. When you go back and watch season 1 again, you're gonna be like, that guy. Oh, every time he's on an episode, something weird happens. Ooh.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I think the vice president was in on this.
That will have to wait for Beyond the Rim.
I like JFK.
Speaking of JFK, Andrew, another little point meta-wise, when they did the Clark swearing in, JMS said when they did that filming, they tried to be as close as humanly possible to the Lyndon B. Johnson swearing in after JFK was shot, to a point where actually off camera, they had a picture of LBJ getting sworn in, and they tried to make all of the cast mirror that picture. Just because they wanted to get, especially for people in the 90s who that was somewhat still fresh to, they wanted to make that visceral memory of this is what happened after JFK. So they made it look like it was on a plane, even though it's Earth Force 2, and they had the same structure of everyone sitting around the room or standing around the room. They did that on purpose.
Who was that lady that Sinclair was trying to warn and she was blowing him off like, you're just on B5, you guys don't know shit, we're the best?
I believe that was another senator, much like Hidoshi.
Okay. Yeah, she was wrong, obviously, but I kind of hope that bites her in the ass.
Yeah, thanks for stepping all over my JFK call out, Scott. But
sorry, it was actually Andrew who did it, not me.
No, it's fine. I obviously definitely noticed that. If you are a history fan of any kind, you immediately recognize that image and knew exactly what it was. Even if I remember from the episode the pink outfit that it looked like the former first lady that was standing next to him was wearing. But to Emily's point too, I also wrote that down. It definitely seems like the vice president is in on it. Not only do we actually get to see him and the president's assassinated, he speaks and he definitely talks and puts forth Earth Force's little, human Earth first agenda will be the priority, and how he coaches it in like, we're in this troubling time. We need to look inward and help ourselves and, heal and blah, 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 blah. So I 100% think he is in on it. I definitely think he's shady. Nicole, there you go. But I got to say, though, these Earth Force guys, these spies, man, how bad at their job are they that they're actually able to get through this? Now, don't get me wrong. I understand it's a television show. So if they were really good at their job, we would never know and it'd be quite boring. But who doesn't double tap when you're killing somebody? Who leaves the witness still alive? You hit Garibaldi in the back, just boom, one right to the dome. You know what I mean? You're good to go. Instead, this guy just leaves him and then just lurks around while Garibaldi's having surgery and while he's in the med bay. And then when the guy goes, hey, his PPG is cold. And he's like, and? I mean, could you not give yourself away any more than that? Like, can you be a better spy, man? Can you be a better spy? I mean, that part kind of, I was like, man, kind of sticks out. I will say to that, with the PPG being cold, I don't think that gives him away. I think that is more of as a cop who had just had your boss killed or potentially killed, shot. He took out those guys, and usually you would be bringing them to justice, but they got quote unquote street justice. So I think I read that more as of anyone who is a little bit less than ethical on the force after your sergeant or commander or whatever gets shot on the line. They will say, it was self-defense. We wanted to end these guys. So I don't see it as a spy thing. Now the other stuff, yeah, I get you, but that one I say that can be played off as just a normal reaction to your boss getting shot at.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add is that there were people directly in front of Garibaldi in that. So him shooting center mass is not only how they're trained, but would be the smart move in that situation. Hold on.
I want two things about that. So Scott, to your point, I don't necessarily disagree. It's an interesting way to think about it. But what you're saying is, instead of it being like, oh, maybe he's a spy, it's, oh, maybe he's just a murderous cop, so we're going to let that go.
Well, no. I'm saying the other two deputies or whatever you want to call them who were on the scene questioning the cold PBG, I don't think they're going to immediately say, oh, this guy's a conspirator. They're going to think, okay, these guys blew these guys away because they took out Garibaldi, and he doesn't want to have to worry about the judicial system. That's what I mean.
No, I gotcha. But I might have questions if I was one of those other. So, but Kevin, to your point, what you're saying is the reason he shot him in the back is to make it look like the other guys got Garibaldi to hit him center mass, or just clarify what you're trying to say.
No. All right. So there are people on the other side of Sinclair from where the shooter is. So he shot him in the back center mass so that he doesn't risk hitting the guys who he was obviously in a conspiracy with.
You mean Garibaldi, right? You said Sinclair.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same person. What I meant is,
yes.
You shoot him in the back, he goes down. Then you walk over him, just plug one in his head, and you just keep it.
And that makes sense to me for sure. But okay,
it's
Nicole.
So I actually was kind of wanting to talk about what John just brought up. The things that kind of stood out to me with this whole plot. My thought process was they were talking about how when Garibaldi found the guns, and he said there was no serial number on it or whatever, and that's what special agents get. I wondered if that Devereaux and his gang were special agents through Home Guard or through Earth Force, and it's maybe they were working with the shady ass security guy. Shady count was up on that one, by the way. I knew it from the beginning. I was trying to figure out if they were working together and maybe those guys were special agents through the government. And then it makes sense that the vice president was in on the hit because those guys were on B5, moving all the cargo. And then, if they were special agents, they basically were corrupt special agents. So, and then at the end, when he took all those guys out, I was just curious, all right, did he actually take them out? Or I was waiting for them to reach down and be like, oh, the PPG is cold. And then the guy to be like, gotcha, bitch, I'm alive, and kill the security guards, That's kind of what I was expecting. So if he was working with them and those guys were special agents and he killed them, so technically he kind of fucked himself. But then also maybe they weren't, maybe they were just shady and he's the actual double agent. I see you guys smiling because you know what's going on and you see my brain thinking.
I'm just watching the hamster spin on the wheel.
Yeah. So there was a lot of theories I had in my mind, but I 100% think the vice president was in on it. But all I know is that somebody is shady. I want to know who was behind this.
I just love all of you folks throughout the process who always thought that Santiago was the quote-unquote shady one. Now the dude dead. So how shady is he?
No, I just wasn't convinced he existed because I really saw him.
So he was vaporized.
Like a puppet somewhere, and they just kept him off camera, and everything was, all the strings were being pulled like, off on the side, and he was just wherever.
We were talking about how we've never seen the president and the vice president. Now you saw them both, because you did see Santiago for a brief second too. Before he got blowed up.
That brief picture, that was him. That was Santiago.
I'm assuming. I mean, they didn't have a tag on it.
Yeah, the white guy named Santiago.
Hey, it's a melting pot. What do you want? Kevin, what do you got?
It's time for Kevin's random thought hour. So,
well, we just had Nicole's random thoughts, so go for it.
You're welcome.
So, there's one scene where Londo's in the garden with Morden, and the shot of the horizon is so bad it looks like a Star Trek the original series episode. The other thing I want to mention was I thought the saddest thing in the episode is that those guys are in the casino bar. They're playing cards. They all have full tall beers, and Garibaldi picks that moment to pull them out. I thought that was by far the saddest part of this episode.
I don't know how to follow that up, except for I will say, you mentioned that scene with the hedgerow or the maze or what you want to call it.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you brought it up, our UK watchers didn't get that same scene. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I think the UK folks did get it. The Americans didn't, because for some reason, one way or the other, the episode when it first aired did not include that piece of CGI. So actually, Londo's walking through a very smaller hedge maze, and he's walking towards an exit sign on the set. So that scene was even worse when they didn't put the CGI in.
The last thing I wanted to mention was, Garibaldi finds out that the president's in peril, and he's like, hey, meet me in here in 20 minutes. 20 minutes?
Right?
What are you doing for the next 18? Come on, let's go.
Dude's got to walk. It's a 5-mile station.
I know it's a big station, but seriously, I think
probably on the reactor,
I think it's time to hustle a little.
John, what do you got?
Well, I mean, to Kevin's last point, I mean, we can go into a whole diatribe, which I'm happy to have about, is Garibaldi good at his job? Is Garibaldi, is he? But I'll skip that. But I will say on the Londo thing, first of all, big ups to one of my favorite jokes, the cat joke with
Yes.
That was good.
I'm slowly eaten by cats. It still worked, which is funny. So it still made sense. But, I don't know if, to Emily's point, we start getting questions where I kind of have a statement, but it also has a question to it, which is, so Morden and his allies, right? So, wonder this the first time he showed up and wonder it even more now, who are these guys' allies? And when Delenn went to Kosh, again, shady, both of them shady. I wondered, are the Vorlons these new people? Are these the allies? Because we've never seen the Vorlons before. Now, apparently Delenn has. I don't know if these new see-through, slightly black whatevers, I mean, are they the Vorlons? Because, part of me thinks, so Jakar, so when they were talking about who could have done this, and one little trope or one little thing you always pay attention to is a lot of times somebody will say something to throw you, the audience, off. So they're like, oh, the humans couldn't have done it. The Vorlons don't care. And it's do they not care? I don't know, because we've seen some supposedly shady shit from Kosh and by extension, the Vorlons. And it makes me wonder if they are the people we just saw, because they have to be some crazy strong something, right? I mean, when Natal says basically a hand, a celestial hand almost, a hand from God, just eliminate 10,000 people and ships and heavy cruisers or destroyers, whatever she said. I mean, you're talking about a huge force just to be wiped off the map like that. Thus far, we've only seen the Vorlons seemingly be the type of civilization or race, or species, whatever you want to call them, that seems even capable of coming close to something like that. So, and again, Kosh at the end interjects himself with Sinclair, basically hey, you missed your shot, homie, just so he could see the Cocoon, which was a great movie, by the way. I thoroughly enjoyed it, even as a kid watching the old people. I'm talking about Cocoon.
I enjoy both of them, Cocoon and Cocoon 2. Cocoon is obviously a better movie. But Cocoon 2 is more funny, and it's fun.
I guess. I also thoroughly expected the very last shot to be her opening her eyes. I was very disappointed when it wasn't.
Yes.
We're giving you a wink. All right. Those are all very good questions, John. Nicole, you're next.
One thing I just wanted to kind of point out that John was just kind of talking about was that it possibly was the Vorlon. The creepy spider murder ships that killed all the Narn were the same ships that killed the people who stole the thing from Londo. Was it the Eye? I can't remember what it was. So same creepy spider murder ship. And I thought that Kosh was involved in that, and maybe the Vorlons were involved in that. I thought he, Koshed them essentially.
I like that you're calling them the creepy spider murder ships, and I think we're going to stick with that. Whatever they are. I enjoy the creepy spider murder ships.
I wrote that and I highlighted it in my notes.
Andrew, what do you got?
Yeah, so first of all, I hadn't even made the connection that those like shadow. I in my notes I just called them shadow people. I hadn't even made the connection that like the possibility that those could be the Vorlons, like their true form. But I did think it was really interesting to see kind of a different side of Londo where, like, yes, he hates the Narn, but then when he finds out that Mr. Morden basically just annihilated that entire outpost, he kind of regretted getting his help because that, clearly that wasn't at all what he wanted, because part of their agreement was Mr. Morden said, like, all I ask in return is that whenever we need help, we want you to help us out. So now that we clearly see that Londo didn't like how he handled things, makes me wonder if he's going to end up returning that favor whenever that time comes.
Good question. John.
Yeah, I mean, I got to follow that up. Those are good points. I mean, Londo is my man. So, like I mentioned earlier, a little disappointed to see him be, I guess, naive is probably the best word. Again, if you make a deal with the devil, what do you expect to happen? One, to his point, he's like, well, what did you think we were going to do? And it was funny when he was like, oh, I thought maybe you do this. And I was like, really? Some random, creepy, shady-ass guy who comes in and grants unlimited wishes with the power of everything. You think he's going to be like, yeah, we'll just protect your ships. Like, little naive for that. But to Andrew's point about his remorse, I stand behind. Same thing with Andrew. 100%. They will collect on that Godfather promise about, one day, you will return the favor. And I think he'll say no. And I think it'll be obviously because of that thought that, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to kill people. I think eventually, him and Jakar are frenemies now. And I think that'll get even closer. And the time will come when he'll have to make a choice. This is a prediction. I know I'm skipping ahead, but you get the feeling that he'll make the right choice. One of the reasons I like Londo so much, or at least I guess I'm pitching my wagon and hoping this is the case, that when the time comes, he'll make the right choice and he'll stand with what will be his friend Jakar and possibly the Narn, probably at personal expense. I mean, I don't think that the way JMS writes, and it's more grounded, that all of a sudden the Narn and Centauri are going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. I don't think it'll be that, but I think potentially at least Londo can do whatever he can to help his friend out in the time. So again, at least that's what I'm hoping the case, because I can't love Londo and have him making boneheaded decisions like this.
It's going to be a long 4 years for you. It's going to be a long 4 years for you. And you can read it as you will. Nicole.
Also, to kind of go along with what John was saying about Londo's character, about having remorse with the Narns, he also was really upset when he found out about Garibaldi and asked Ivanova if he can stand with her and wait. And he even said he's annoying, but I would miss him if he doesn't come back. So I think Londo does have a conscience and a good heart, even if he hates the Narns. And I do maybe kind of agree with what John was saying, that I think in the long run, when push comes to shove, he's going to stand his ground. Whether or not he, survives that, I don't know, but I think he's going to take the right path. Considering he was remorseful and he really cared about and was worried about Garibaldi. I really honestly like Garibaldi and Londo's friendship is one of my favorite aspects of this whole season so far. I really just love that friendship. So I think that, I think that John is right on the money where I think Londo's going to follow the right path.
Jessi, you're up.
I think shit's about to hit the fucking fan with that, because it's going to come out, or maybe they're going to blackmail him. I don't know how it's going to look, but what he just did killed 10,000 Narns. There's no way that isn't coming out. And I think that the only way that it doesn't come out is some other shady shit. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Andrew.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back and to kind of counter my own point about Londo's future relationship with Mr. Morden, because also part of their agreement was that basically Londo would pin the whole thing on himself. And as a result of that, he's now seen as kind of a war hero. And I don't know if it was just me, but I could also kind of pick up a little bit of where like he was feeling remorseful, but then he was kind of starting to reconsider how he felt. So I don't know. I feel like Lando's character is about to get a lot more complex.
John?
Yeah, I wish we had seen this episode before we had Claudia Christian on, just so I could applaud her for the ridiculous amount of hotness that she was flashing this episode in that blue dress. Good God. The hate I had for that character is totally dissipated just from that little bit. And, I hope we get much more of that in the following seasons to come, because she was a knockout.
Yeah, when Nicole says during the interview that she's got great hair, she was flashing that in this episode.
The hair was down.
And curly, which I haven't seen.
I dig.
So I'm going to say this because she put in her own autobiography, so I feel like I'm not being too terrible. But I am reading her autobiography now, listening, because I don't read. But I don't think yet, but at least by season 2, she was having an affair with the director of photography. And she flat out said he made sure that no matter what was happening, she had the best lighting possible and she had the best camera angles possible. And he made sure to make her look good the entire time.
And he did an amazing job.
Yeah, he did well. He did well.
Yep. So I think at this point there was like an infatuation, but not an affair. But she flat out says later on the show they were having an affair where they would go to each other's trailers. So, and again, this is something she put in her book, so I don't feel bad saying it. But she was very much aware that he was making sure that she got the right lighting and the right angles.
Was he married? An affair?
No,
isn't that just?
I'm sorry. I say it's an affair because the people on the show were not aware of it.
Oh.
However, he was a secret relationship. How about that?
Okay.
I will say, for those who may want to check out her autobiography, it's called Babylon Confidential. It is extremely hard to get through, and so be prepared. Not that, I mean, she's an excellent storyteller. She had a hard life. We'll put it that way. Nicole.
First of all, get it, Claudia. Get that mingles. Get that lighting. Go, girl.
John.
So one of the things that I meant to, I don't know if ask or point out during we were talking about the presidential portion of the storyline. They mentioned he was leaving Mars. So should I take that as the rebellion's been put down?
I don't think we heard one way or the other. I think he was doing a tour of the solar system to get people's attention. Even the reporter said this should be good for voters, but I don't think we heard one way or the other.
So I thought that because obviously bringing a president into a war zone would seem not that safe. But then also when they assassinated him, I thought, oh, there was an easier way to do that. Just have him be killed right there in the Mars Rebellion, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You blame it on the rebels. Boom. Bob's your uncle.
Poor guy got all the way to Jupiter before he blowed him up. Emily.
Gonna change the subject a little bit. How does Delenn feel about Sinclair getting married? Because he's kind of already married to her in that ceremony that it seems like he's still not aware of maybe yet, since he proposed to Catherine. So anyone else have thoughts on that?
At the moment, she's in a cocoon, so I can't ask her.
Lots of thoughts, Emily. Lots of thoughts.
I want to hear those.
The weird sexual tension in that scene when she was like ostensibly talking about, oh, I need to talk to you, give you some information. It was hot. I felt it. You could cut sexual tension with a knife. It was crazy. And then to your point, though, I was like, oh, I wonder if she knows that my man got engaged. And she's like, ha, you fool, you're already married.
To the sexual tension part, we obviously are really loving on Claudia Christian, which we absolutely should. But don't put Mira Furlan down. That woman is a very, very sexy individual, and her acting ability and being able to be sexy in that outfit and that makeup, she does a good job. Nicole.
I was just going to say, one of the things that I wrote down was when Delenn went to see Kosh, first of all, I still think Kosh is shady. She goes to Kosh and she said she has doubts and she must know if it's true, and she has to see it with her own eyes. And then he opens up this creepy little thing and all you see is blue light and her eyes light up. And then she said, okay, well, I'll keep my promise and remember me how I am, because I won't, be like this. What the hell is her promise? Like, what does that mean? Like, what is going on there? Like, that whole interaction was just so weird. And then when she goes back to her room and she's playing with that crystal Lego set thing, and then, Lanier is trying to talk her out of whatever is going to happen, it was just like so bizarre. And then all you see is like Lanier crying and then this crazy crystal thing, and then, Sinclair comes in, oh, it's too late, and then she's in the cocoon. And it's like, what the fuck? That whole like Delenn sequence, I just have so many questions. Like,
right?
What
like,
did Kosh show her?
How is Kosh involved in this? Why would he be involved? This seems like an odd pairing for knowledge.
Right. And they're totally different, like alien species. So there's not anything that would connect them like species wise. And it doesn't seem like they have any sort of alliance or beef. So like, what the fuck? Like,
I'm assuming they know each other before the creation of Babylon 5. I feel like they had to have known, there's a chance they knew each other before that.
Well, and when
Scott's sitting here with this weird ass look on his face, like, I know the answer and I can't tell you.
Yep.
Oh, I'm actually answering in my head right now as you bringing stuff up. I'm like, that's right, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong. This happens here, this happens
in that
there.
order. In that order.
No, I'm not. No, I was just. That's not in the order. No.
I'm gonna eat your ice cream.
Please
well,
don't.
and then, Sinclair's sitting at the bar feeling all blue, and then here comes Kosh, do, and then you hear the crazy music, and he's like, it has begun. You have forgotten something. Like, what the hell? Where did you come from? What hole did you crawl out of that you just came to Sinclair and it's like, haha, gotcha, bitch. You're not going to find out now. Like, that's exactly what I thought.
Right?
I will say I actually laughed out loud when Kosh just started appearing like from around the corner. Just it
little
just to me
saunter.
It just looked so awkward. Sinclair's like over there drinking his woes away after finding out the president's been killed, and then Kosh just comes out like R2D2, like out from like around the corner of the door.
A couple of things. I wonder if you all noticed. Did you notice what was on top? Since Nicole mentioned the Lego set, did you notice what was on top of the Lego set?
Yeah, the
Triluminary.
Triluminary.
Yeah.
Well,
and this
didn't
is
we
also...
see her put it on top?
Yeah, she actually takes it.
Didn't we see her?
Tink.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So the Triluminary is involved, whatever that may be. Also, I think this may be the first, if it's not the first, it's definitely only the second time we actually see Kosh at a meeting of the other races. He was hanging out in the background, just chilling. So Kosh has been hanging out around the station more than usual,
which is suspicious.
Just throwing out facts. That's all I'm doing. John.
Yes, I'm glad you brought up the
Sorry.
Yeah. So because it made me think of two things. So the first, obviously, I think I mentioned it last episode, maybe, we got the chrysalis, we got the cocoon. I mean, what do we know cocoons are for traditionally, right? Butterflies, and you go in one thing, you come out another. So to me, I read that as very clear that Delenn is going through some sort of metamorphosis and a different version of herself, which I thought could be potentially interesting with what we've seen with I guess I'll call them the flash forward Sinclair and Delenn now, which was another reason it seems that she wasn't shown. I did mention that when she was heard speaking to him off screen, but we didn't see her. I did point out that I think that was significant because something has to be about her appearance is different. And I think this is what it was. She's changing into something else. And that's when she was asking Kosh and telling people about remembering her. I think she's essentially ending this version of her and is about to emerge with a new version. And whether that includes all memories, some memories, no memories, I mean, that's the kind of, we'll see what comes of that. But to bring it back to the Triluminary, the reason I mentioned that is because they did make a point of her asking, do you recognize this? And Sinclair saying, yes, kind of. It was there. And we only got a little bit. So it made me wonder whether, and maybe this is the question, they use that on Sinclair. Maybe this is a Chrysalis version of Sinclair. Maybe there's another Chrysalis version of Sinclair coming. He can't remember something, can't remember those 24 hours. We saw the Triluminary and that could explain the blackout. I don't know, but I thought it was important that they reference it. Usually you don't literally spell out for the viewer, you've seen this before, remember this, unless it's that important. So I skipped ahead a little bit. That was a little bit of a prediction / question.
Well, I think we can assume based on what Delenn said that her intent before the end of this episode was to tell Sinclair exactly what had happened. So she was going to work on that. But as Kosh said, you have forgotten something. And by the time he got in the room, too late. So we don't know either. Andrew.
Yes, I wanted to add on to Nicole's point about kind of that opening with Delenn and Kosh, but go a little earlier than that. Because the first time we see Delenn, it's Lanier coming back from delivering that message. We don't know what that message was, but delivering a message to Kosh, and when he comes back, he says all he said was yes. So yeah, that was just something else I wanted to bring attention to.
To all the points you're making, I'm going to go back to what I think I've said a couple times. The one thing I love about JMS is he doesn't do mystery boxes. So everything you guys have brought up from the start to Andrew's last point, you're going to get answers to 100%. Every little plot thread he has, he is going to tie up. So hang on.
Yeah, I think so. Andrew, when I read that, I think because I also was like, oh, I wonder what the question was. And then with the metamorphosis thing, I think the question has to do with Sinclair and the prophecy, right? Like, so it's, yeah. So will you ensure X or whatever? Will you ensure? Because we saw the previous episodes when, it was like, oh, he has to be saved or protected. He's the one. There's something super important. We've already seen that Minbari talk about this prophecy. And I thought it was interesting that Lanier was like doubtful a little doubting Thomas. Are you sure this is going to work? Are you sure? She was like, yeah, I'm gonna go through it anyways. And again, the same thing, like, remember me. And I think her question to Kosh was something like, although actually, you know what, even literally just thought about this. I wonder if it was, since she said I have to see, I wonder if Kosh has gone through a Chrysalis, and she, Emily mentioned, well, maybe she knew him before. So maybe he was something previously and has gone through it. She has to see it for her own eyes to know that it's going to work, or to know that it will work, or have more faith in it, which would be interesting. That means she's doubting her own. Literally, I'm just speaking out loud now because I'm literally just thinking about this. But I wonder if that's the question. Like, you gone through it, show me, like, prove it.
Kevin and I are sitting here just watching y'all like spin yarns of theories, and it is just fun to watch. It really is.
It's not fun. I'll never make you more.
Thank you.
And to go off what you just said, John, like, another totally crazy off the wall theory, because I still think he's shady, but is Kosh protecting Sinclair somehow in the shadows? Maybe that was the agreement that Delenn and him had. Like, since Sinclair is so important to the Minbari, right? He's some sort of key, or some sort of, like, he's significant to them. Maybe Kosh isn't shady, and all in all the crazy shit he's doing, is he protecting Sinclair on behalf of them? Is there some sort of agreement that him and Delenn have to keep him safe? And then when she turns into whatever the hell she's going to turn into, she takes over. Like, there's so many things that it could be. And when John was talking, that's like what I was thinking. I was like, well, maybe the question is like, did he hold up his end of the bargain and protect Sinclair, or something like that? I'm probably totally wrong, because I still think Kosh is shady, but you just never know with this show.
Well, Nicole, let's go ahead and answer that for you right now. Oh, wait, no, not going to.
You
Sorry.
suck.
Emily.
Nicole's point made me think of it, but maybe Kosh has something that can help Sinclair get to the future, because we saw the time jump or whatever it was in Babylon Squared, where future Sinclair comes back. So does Kosh have some sort of technology or knowledge about whatever Sinclair needs to do in the future to try to come back and change the situation now?
Yeah, because we talked about it, I think, Emily, you and I were talking about it last episode, about the Minbari seemingly having some sort of ability to see in the future, or they can see things. And so perhaps as part of that metamorphosis too, you might lose. Again, that's the point about, like, losing yourself, a different version of yourself. Perhaps you'll forget those things. So you have to tell someone, if you're a time traveler, hey, don't let me forget this, or here's a good keyword. Maybe it's about Kosh, keeping up what she'll lose, or, with this metamorphosis.
Nicole.
So I had another thought. It's kind of going back to what we were previously talking about, but still relevant to this. One thing I remembered specifically just now was that at the very end, when Mr. Morden was talking to the creepy shadow puppets, or whatever the fuck they were, he said that he suspects nothing. And he's clueless, basically, and Londo will do as they wish. And he said specifically, destiny is on their side. I've noticed that throughout this whole episode, that was like a theme, because Jakar was like, I'm going to go out and figure it out. And like, he's on this mission to find out what happened to his people. Delenn with the whole, like, it's destiny, the whole, like, not wanting to be part of the Great Council and wanting to fulfill this destiny, and seeing this vision or whatever. And then, I feel like destiny, the specific destiny, is a theme that's recurring through this whole season. I want to know, what the fuck is this destiny, damn it?
Yeah, are they all up against some prophecy, and in their own ways they're trying to alter it for a different outcome?
Right. And are this creepy spider murder ships, like, gonna take everybody out? Like, that's the destiny they're fighting? Like, is that who they're fighting? And in the, like when, we have that flash forward and future Sinclair comes back, like, was that who they were fighting with the Babylon 4? Like the creepy murder spider ships? Like what is happening here?
Good questions. Anybody else?
Yeah. How long are you going to keep this charade going, Scott? How long must we take this?
Based on one episode a week, probably about another 2 years.
I'm starting a riot.
Again, as I just mentioned, JMS doesn't have mystery boxes. The other thing, too, is JMS understands that he has to stay ahead of the audience, but also make sure he's not pissing off the audience. So what you're going to find is he will answer questions as you go and then bring up more questions. So a lot of the questions that you guys have right now are without, I can't say exactly when because it'll be a spoiler, but they're going to be answered a lot sooner than you think. And then there's going to be new questions and so forth and so on. So he keeps you going. Remember, as I said when we started with The Gathering, this is literally a novel in 5 chapters. You just finished chapter 1. We're now moving into chapter 2. A lot of the plot threads from chapter 1 will be tied up soon, and then we'll get more plot threads from chapter 2 and so forth and so on. So I joke it'll be 2 years. For some stuff, it may be 2 years. But for most of it, I think you're going to be happy with how JMS strings this out.
And we've also alluded to the fact that things speed up a little bit too.
Absolutely. I think the production crew, JMS, the actors, they have figured themselves out in season 1. And also the special effects have figured themselves out in season 1. I think you're going to be very delighted with how season 2 turns out. And then it gets even better from there.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah.
Hey, I told you all to stick with me for season 1.
Scouts honor.
And yeah.
Sorry, I'm Scouts.
I am. I told you all to stick with us for season 1. And for the most part, it took you a little bit, but I think you're interested for season 2. So we've gotten through the hard part. I'll put it that way. Nicole.
I do have to say, Scott, you are right so far, like with the questions being answered, because I feel like we have had a lot of questions answered, but I feel like his style is, all right, I'm going to give you these nuggets, but then I'm going to leave you with these other questions. So it's like he gives us what we want, but then he gives us a whole new set of questions that we're asking for. And maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I actually kind of enjoy watching this from start to finish without spoilers, because I'm one of those people, like if I'm reading a book, I always read ahead and read the end first. Or like if I watch a show, I read up the entire, like the synopses, and I always spoil it for myself. So for me, again, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I kind of like this, watching it every week and discussing it and not knowing. It kind of keeps it exciting for me a little bit as we go along. So yes, it sucks because I want to know right now exactly everything that's happening. But also I feel like it keeps me more interested to like really focus on the episodes when I watch them, because I'm looking for answers because I want to know them. So I think I watch it with a different lens, if that makes sense. So, I won't give you too much shit about Going Beyond the Rim, because I do think that, yes, I want to know right now, and I hate waiting. I'm very impatient, but also for me, just thinking about like, oh my God, what's going to happen? When are we going to find this out? It's kind of exciting, and it keeps the whole series even more interesting to me than I'm already, invested, I guess.
It's almost like that's what JMS intended.
I know.
Yeah,
it's like dangling the carrot.
I think the easiest way I can say it is, unlike many writers, JMS respects the audience. And I think you're going to see that as you move on. John.
Nicole, I also like watching it week to week and it's just the smugness the first ones have when we're talking and going off on tangents that they already know what's going on that gets me. But
I feel that.
Yeah. Well, so instead of going in on Garibaldi and whether or not he's good at his job, I will say at least the man knows how to put out information before he dies, unlike Petrov, who says him instead of the name. At least he was like, no, hold on. I got to get this info out. It's critically important. Let me say it if it's even my last words. So props to him for at least doing that. And then I also thought it was funny and interesting that they were celebrating New Year's Eve, Earth New Year's Eve. And then I wondered, how far away are they in the universe? Like, so back on Earth, because stuff seems to happen concurrently, like, you're watching this news broadcast from Earth right now. Would it be the same day on Earth as it is there? Like, wouldn't that be out of sync?
That is the stupidest question you have ever asked in your whole.
Well, time is a
time
social
on this
construct,
podcast.
so
I'm not going to listen to some.
Andrew's right. Andrew's 100% right.
What
Time
did
is
you
a
say?
social construct. Time is a social construct.
I get that. However, we have all bought into said construct. And as you can see, they're clearly keeping track of days and celebrating fake time milestones. So my question is, are they linking up? I just was wondering how that works with the planet versus the station.
I would assume instead of doing like Epsilon time, because no one gives a shit about Epsilon time, they're probably on like Greenwich Mean Time or something, because it doesn't really matter. It's all based on construct. So I would assume Babylon 5 probably follows whatever Earth Dome follows, and they're in Switzerland. So whatever that time zone is, I'm guessing that's where they're at. I think I did tell you all this before, though. One thing that they showed it today, or they showed in the episode, is each season does follow a calendar year. So we're moving into 2259, and the new intro, starting with the next episode, will be it's the year 2259.
See, so time does matter, Jessi.
There's no fucking way the day is the same on Earth and 800 light years away. It's not fucking possible.
Well, but if they decide when the lights turn on and off, they can make it a 24-hour day. They can absolutely. They're in a tin can. You can decide. What?
Points don't matter.
Well, no, seriously. I mean, the International Space Station technically isn't on a 24-hour day because they're farther away from us. And I'm assuming when we land people on the moon in 2026, I think, they're going to be on lunar time, but really they're going to be on whatever Houston's time is because that's who they're communicating with. You can arbitrarily pick your day-night cycle.
Right. That's why I asked, because, I'm Jessi. I don't care about time.
Time is made up. It's all made up. It's all just like...
I think of it like...
You
I
can
think of it
choose
like
whatever you want.
Right.
If you've ever cruised, you have ship time. So when you pass through time zones, you stay on ship time. So if you leave the port of Miami, you're always going to be on East Coast time, whether you're in Mexico or Bahamas or whatever. I kind of look at it that way.
I'm not rich enough to go on cruises, Scott. So
I can find you some cheap cruises because that's what I do.
The reason
same.
I bring it up is because it is interesting when you think about the life on the station, right? So if they are in sync with Earth, how would that impact? So let's just say, because I like getting into, let's just say I'm a worker on B5. And I'm a low guy applying my trade. I'm an electrician, okay? And I want to take some R&R and I want to go back home to Earth. Is it December 30th or are they on like June 6th? And when do I have to plan my Christmas vacation, Jessi? These are things, see, I know you say hour and you don't care, but us common folk, like to be there and embrace friends and family during the holidays.
I didn't say that I don't care. Also, this is very much giving me time travel vibes that we've already.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Nothing at all.
Where some invisible spiders were talking to some guy, and you're like, I'm cool with that. But time travel.
They look like those praying mantis guys. The shadows to me look like the praying mantis guy in the basement, or not the basement, down below.
I love that we were recording for about an hour and you finally got to the people hanging out with Mr. Morden. You guys took some time to get there.
I thought they were Volans.
I brought it up.
You did mention him? Okay.
I mentioned him too.
Okay. I just wasn't listening. It's fine.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought they were Volans. And one of the questions I was going to say was like, so is Morden, is he a human? Is he a shapeshifter? How can you understand these people? How is a seemingly regular human able to interact, talk, and work with these invisible fuck spiders?
That's a very good question.
They were invisible to us, not necessarily invisible to him.
It's a good point.
So now you've got that care where you're like, no, they're invisible to us. Not.
I will say
camera angles, Jonathan. I don't know what else to tell you.
I will say JMS was very proud of that scene because it is only the second time that we had full CGI characters. You could see through them, but that was 100% CGI, and that was big for them.
Shadows?
Whatever's in with Mr. Morden, yes.
Were they shadows or were they not shadows?
No.
Because it looked like shadows to me.
No, they were
they were translucent.
So they were invisible to us.
I think that's up to the viewer.
Translucent means.
I think it's up to the viewer at this point. I'm not going to say more because you will find out, but it's up to the perspective of the viewer at this point if you can see them or not.
I like Andrew coming in hard with it.
I know.
I guess they are transparent.
I do know that I want to punch Morden in the face.
Yes. He is a wanker.
Yes.
I love that guy, honestly.
Ed Wasser God, he does the best Rod Serling impression ever, and I freaking love it. He is, especially when he's in the hedgerow with Londo. I'm just seeing Rod Serling on Babylon 5, and it's perfect.
Seeing who? What?
Oh my God, people! Rod Serling, the host of the Twilight Zone.
Nope.
The host of the Twilight Zone.
Yep. Sorry.
Okay. If I already didn't have a Twilight Zone podcast that I've been slacking off on, I would say we need to do a Twilight Zone podcast. But you all should listen to my Twilight Zone podcast, which is Zonasodes, by the way.
You've never seen the opening where he's like imagine a world where isn't that also in the floating door?
It's only the best TV show ever.
Add us to your podcast.
Last I checked, it's on Netflix.
It's on like Hulu and everything too. Yeah, but it is seriously the best TV show ever. Twilight Zone.
Okay,
that's like
these little.
Kevin, shut up. You have no taste. Go watch Mandalorian again.
I don't
actually, no, Mandalorian's good. Go watch Boba Fett again, Kevin. Go watch that. Enjoy.
Y'all are the worst.
Angry.
Also, I mean, so I get not liking him, but to be fair, is a man who goes, "Who are you? What do you want?" and then gives you what you want. I kind of wish that dude would come walk into my door tomorrow because I got some suggestions. I have ideas.
He's done it twice for Londo.
He will ask for something in return, and you might not want to agree to it.
Maybe he'll just ask for a puppy. You don't know.
What would your request be? I need to know this.
We should all answer that. We should all answer it.
Do you really want me to say it out loud?
Yes, I
want to know, actually.
I'm going to have to hit the
I'm sure our listeners want to know.
The possibilities of what could come out of fucking Jonathan's mouth. I can't wait to hear this.
It would be to make Jessi love time travel in all of its forms.
Womp womp.
Lies.
Womp womp.
Those are lies.
No, it's a good little thing we could do. So if I'm being serious, it would probably.
Can I say timeout? Let's do this for the season 1 recap show. That will be live on December 11th. So
can I get mine out because I don't want it live?
You can tell us, and I'll edit it out later. But so if you want to hear what everyone would want from Mr. Morden, December 11th, 8 p.m. Central Time, YouTube. You can click the notify button right now to be notified when we go live, and we will have that as part of our season 1 recap. Let's go ahead and move into questions, predictions. And at this one, guys, I want to keep it just to what you saw in Chrysalis because we will do a full season 1 questions, predictions at the recap of season 1. I know there's kind of a fine line there, but if you have anything that's coming from previously in the season that we haven't answered yet, save that for the season 1 recap. So let's go ahead and do questions, predictions based on Chrysalis, and we will go to Emily first.
All right. So I have 4. The first one was the VP involved in the assassination plot, which we've kind of discussed, but we don't have answers to. Did Delenn know Kosh before the creation of B5? Are we going to see a new species to be introduced in season 2, or as Nicole likes to call them, the spider murder?
Creepy spider murder ships.
Creepy spider murder ship species. And the last one is, does Catherine die?
Okay. Do you have any predictions, or is that just your questions?
No, I was just, the last one is because we've seen Sinclair in the future, and Delenn is with him, and it makes me wonder what happens to Catherine because they're supposed to get married. So do they just not get married, or does something bad happen to her?
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Jessi, questions, predictions. You actually said you had some this week, so that's good.
Some of them we've already asked throughout the podcast. So one is, and I know we'll find out about all of this, but I just could not help but wonder what is going to happen with Delenn. I need to know. I need to see what she's going to turn into. I honestly don't think she's going to turn into anything physically different. I want to know what the whole damn situation is about, because I was confused as shit, and
she hides the butterfly wings really well in future seasons. She does.
Possibly. I mean, hey. My prediction, Sinclair he's gonna die, or he's gonna leave. It's awful fucking weird that he's just getting married out of nowhere. And I feel like this is his exit plot of I'm gonna go back to Earth and raise Earth babies or some weird shit. I don't know what he's doing, but I think he's out. I don't think he has much longer. I would be surprised if he makes it through season 2. That's it.
Earth babies. I like that. We're gonna raise.
Babies.
We're gonna raise.
Just to clarify.
Right.
as
Not
opposed
Mars
to Epsilon
Mars
3
babies?
babies or whatever.
Right.
Andrew, what do you got?
Yeah, so Morden, who is this guy? Because I'm starting to lean more towards he's a miscellaneous race that we haven't yet seen. And then also what did happen with Sinclair at the Battle of the Line? Those are my two questions.
Nicole, you're up.
Okay, so the shady guard that has been planted in the last couple episodes at the end, how he's creepily watching over Garibaldi's surgery. Does he ever get found out? Do they ever find him and figure out that he's shady? Does he get in trouble? Does he get yeeted? Like, what happens to this fucker? And what did he actually kill those guys? And why did he kill those guys? Devereaux and his crew. Then what happens with the Narn with Jakar on his little mission is when he said, tell Sinclair he was right. We have, basically hit an impasse and it'll never be the same. Does that mean his relationship with Sinclair or the humans has been damaged, or meaning just in general, everything's fucked up and never going to be the same? So that was something I was curious about. And then will Sinclair ever find out what Delenn wanted to tell him? Is he going to actually find out what she was going to tell him on that day? Or is it just going to be a mystery for him? And then what the fuck is she turning into? And is she going to die? Is she going to survive? I mean, I think she's going to survive because we hear her at the end with Sinclair in the flash forward. So I know she survives in some way, but what the hell is she turning into? And then will Garibaldi survive? Because I love Garibaldi. I don't care what John says. He's one of my favorites. So is he going to survive? And is he going to be, the same, or is he going to have to quit, or is he too injured, or just what's going to happen there? And then I think those were all my questions. And then what was the question that Lanier asked Kosh? I want to know that too. I know some of the stuff we already discussed. So prediction wise, I think that it was Jessi who said the shit's going to hit the fan. I think that's coming for sure. Because I feel like with all the shit that went down with the Narn, with the shit that's going down with Delenn, with the ominous ass, everything has changed at the end with Sinclair, something's about to go down. And I feel like it's going to be worse than what we've already seen. And I do think that the creepy spider murder ship people are going to be part of that. I think they're going to cause a lot of trouble. And I still want to know, I guess another question, is Kosh shady, and is he part of this clan of, creepy spider murder ships?
And John, questions, predictions.
Well, since I had to go last this time, everyone has stolen almost all of my questions.
What a loss.
And I asked some throughout the show. So I think one of the questions I did still have that nobody's brought up yet was about the assassination plot. So I'm going to assume that the vice president's in on it. I'm going to assume that that's going. So my question is it all just to put this guy in power, just to be isolationist, right? To get away from working with and being closer to these other species? Or is there a much more nefarious plot, which I would assume is the case, and they've got something else working, right? You put your people in power, put your chess pieces, and then you deploy your game. So that's my question. And my prediction is that it is more nefarious. I think that humanity has a pretty fragile ego, and I think they know that the Minbari basically let them win and or tie, if you will, the war, and that doesn't sit right with them. And so I think that they're still holding a grudge. And so I think this is a beginning of getting back at the Minbari. That's a prediction. The other prediction is I do think that Delenn will come out changed. So I will contradict Jessi's prediction. I think she will be different. I think she will have lost some of who she is. I think she will look different. I also think that Garibaldi will survive. It would be bold to kill off a character like that. But I think that if they were going to do that, it probably would have more resonance to do it in episode instead of paying an actor to come back for one episode just to kill him. But who knows? But my prediction is that he'll live. I think he'll be fine. My other prediction is that Londo will continue to be awesome. And as I stated earlier, will eventually make the case and or choice that will redeem him and become Jakar's friend. However, we didn't talk about it a lot, but Jakar's message there at the end to Natoth, I think definitely did spell a Narn rampage. And so excited to see how that bleeds itself in season 2. So
a Narn page, if you would.
Yes. A Narn page. Yes, a full-on Narn page. My last prediction is that Jakar's going to keep putting up numbers in season 2, and Lando's going to join him. And Natath will listen to both.
That will end it for our discussion of Chrysalis with the newbies. We're going to go ahead and jettison out the airlock and move into Beyond the Rim. So if this is the first time watching Babylon 5 for you, after our credits, you should leave us. And if you either have already watched the show all the way through or just don't care about spoilers, stick around after the credits, and Kevin, myself, and then Blake and Mike will magically appear, and we will talk Beyond the Rim for Chrysalis. Next week is going to be a special week for us. So the audio podcast next week will be our season 1 recap, and that will drop on our normal Wednesday drop. And then we will do the next week will be Points of Departure, which is the first episode of season 2. However, if you want to check out the season 1 recap live, we will be doing that December 11th at 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time. So if you go to our YouTube account, the Gray 17 podcast, you will see already that the live is set up. You can click the notify button and you'll know as soon as we go live. But again, that will be December 11th at 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Until next week when we talk about season 1, I'm Scott, and with me as always has been
Kevin,
Emily,
Jessi,
Andrew,
Nicole,
the one and only Upchuckle Nugget, John.
And we will see you next week on Gray 17 or live if you check us out on next Sunday. Thanks, everybody.
I can't believe we fucking made it through season 1. I almost quit 1,000 times, and we're here now. So I can't wait.
Shit's about to get good.
Thank you for listening to Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to this podcast and links to our social media accounts at anchor.fm/Gray17podcast. We want to hear from you, so please join the discussion on Facebook and Twitter. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Gray 17 is a part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. You can find all the Front Row shows at thefrontrownetwork.com. Gray 17 is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All audio clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing Babylon 5 themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim,
And beyond that?
the truth.
Welcome back to Beyond the Rim. We are here now with just our first ones to discuss everything that our newbies had in terms of questions and predictions for what was the last episode of season 1. So really, we're talking about everything that comes after season 1 at this point. If you have not watched after season 1 or you do not want to get spoiled on anything, now would be the time to leave. If not, we'll dive right in. So, okay. Guys, let's start off with John first. His first question is, are the Vorlons the new race that wiped out the Narn? And are the Vorlons the ones working with Morton?
Yeah, no. Fun question, but no.
Yeah, it is interesting how they decided to equate the two races together.
I mean, they're close. I mean, because what we're going to get, especially when we get into the first ones, and I think it's Lorien that gives the later on that the first ones left and they left the Shadows and the Vorlons, and they had very different ideas on how to oversee the younger races. Control versus chaos. Yeah. Which is the two questions we get. Who are you and what do you want? It's their philosophies.
I actually think it's really funny because my recollection in watching B5 for the very first time is that I never had any mistrust of the Vorlons. Despite how shadowy and suspicious they act, I never doubted that they were the good guys until Kosh 2.0 joined.
Yeah.
But even Kosh 2.0 was... Oh, go ahead.
This is kind of along that lines. I always kind of took them as almost the, for lack of a better comparison, the Vulcans of the Babylon 5, universe. Yeah. That older race with the definite superiority complex, kind of that talks around things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and Kosh 2.0 was meant to look suspicious, if you ask me. I mean, he went with the purple color palette, which, I don't know, reminds me of Decepticons, I guess. And also his encounter suit was more spiky.
Well, he heard in purple people look stunning, so he went with purple.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, interesting that John kind of went that direction, that he is now mistrusting of the Vorlons as though they might actually be the big bad hiding in plain sight. It would be really interesting.
Along those same lines, he asked if Kosh has gone through the Chrysalis as well.
No.
Yeah, I think he's referring to, what's underneath the encounter suit, but I also noticed that none of them caught the flapping wings. The flapping wings sound is extremely prevalent when he comes out of that suit, but no one caught it, so we'll have to wait a little bit until they figure that part out.
They're all focused on the weird extended neck.
Yeah, the Rock'em Sock'em robot.
And I guess it's also interesting that they've kind of forgotten about the encounter between Kosh and Morden and the shadows in the hallway, that Kosh was injured or damaged.
I also think it's interesting that Delenn hasn't seen the Vorlon, the true Vorlon, yet up until this point. I found that interesting. Perhaps Dukat had, but she had not.
Yeah, I bet they keep that very much under wraps unless they need to.
Do we know that for sure? Like, I actually thought that was interesting how freely she went to his quarters and he just popped out of his suit seemingly in front of her. I wasn't sure what to make of that myself.
She said, I need to see, I'm losing faith, or I need to believe something.
She needs to know. She needs to know for sure.
The context sound like she had never seen him before.
I guess I read that as though he was maybe telepathically showing her a vision or something that he needed to have more direct contact for. But that's an interesting take.
No, I think he was just like, here's my angel wings. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going to see later. When Kosh comes out of the encounter suit to save Sheridan, each race sees Kosh as their own deity.
Right.
And even when, if I'm not mistaken, in War Without End, with the very end of part 2, when the Minbari show up on the station, the encounter suits are open, and it's the more Minbari angelic appearance of the Vorlons,
right,
flanking Valen.
Yep. And really, from what we saw in both that instance and in the instance when Sheridan's falling to his death, is really they're all angelic. It's just they have different faces. And of course, Londo sees nothing. But even because we get a good look of Jakar and what he sees, and it's an angel with a Narn face. So it's all kind of the same kind of religious setup.
Can't remember if it was in the beginning or the B5 episode that went further into that. I thought there was the line from Dukat about staring into a Vorlon.
You're right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we never saw it, but yeah,
we didn't see it, but I think it's implied through dialogue that he had.
Something along the lines of your life is never the same after you stare into a Vorlon or something like that. You're right. So Dukat definitely has, but I don't think many have. And I'm sure Delenn probably hadn't, and it was one of those like, you've told me all these things, I know what you're supposed to be, so prove it before I go do this.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess, and I missed the beginning part of the podcast on this episode, so bear with me. Has it already been asked? So what was specifically the question that Delenn asked of Kosh via Lanier, and why did she go about it that way?
I think she asked, are the shadows here?
Has the ancient enemy returned to Zahadum?
Yep. Because she knew the shadows were messing around when Morden showed up, but are they actually amassing forces, and is this happening? And he's like, yep. And oh, by the way, I'm an angel. Oh, let's see. What was Delenn losing with the metamorphosis? Well, her connection to the Grey Council sooner or later, but not yet.
Her bald head.
Yeah.
She's gaining hair.
Yes. Not losing the bone structure, though. It'll still be there. Let's see. Is a conspiracy all to put Clark in power for Earth First agenda? No. No. Clark is getting played just like everybody else. It's multi-layers. It's like a little oh my god, I just lost my train of thought. It's like a Ponzi scheme. You've got everyone thinking that they're in charge, but they're not. Because you've also got the Psi Corps thinking they're the ones pulling the strings, but then the shadows are pulling the Psi Corps strings. So it's all the shadows playing with this. They're trying to immobilize Earth so they can make a move without Earth being a problem.
I guess if you read the question as is Clark the top of the pyramid, the answer is definitely not.
No.
He definitely, thinks that he's going to be able to further the Earth First agenda for sure, but
absolutely,
he finds out much later that he is a very small cog.
And when he does, he puts a bullet.
He ever finds that out.
Well,
I think when he put the gun to his head, he still thought he was it was Hitler offing himself in the bunker when the Allies were closing in.
Yeah.
I think he thought he was still in charge of Earth until the forces showed up and whooped his ass. And he knew it was over then.
You're probably right there, just egotistical and narcissistic. But he had to have known that the Corps was involved as well, because he was using the Corps and he knew they were using him as well too. So, but no, I get what you're saying. That in his mind, this is all me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his prediction is the same thing as the VP on the assassination. Yes. Let's see. Londo will say no when Morden comes to collect on his Godfather favor. Londo will make the right choice. Can't like Londo and him be making bonehead decisions. So we kind of talked about
that
this.
Statement's gonna
Good luck with that.
Yeah, he's not wrong, but he's wrong in timeline. Because Londo's going to try to tell Morden no, and he's going to lose Adira for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Londo will get his final say with Mr. Morden down the road. I can't wait for Veer to make his little wave.
Was this one of Londo's opportunities to avoid his fate that he wasted?
Here's the full prophecy. You still have 3 opportunities to avoid the fire at the end of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
You've already wasted 2 others. You must save the eye that does not see. You must not kill the one who is already dead, which to me, that's Sheridan. That's releasing Sheridan.
Yes, which he does.
And at the last, you must surrender yourself to your greatest fear, knowing that it will destroy you. And those last 2 were that flash forward scene in War Without End.
Is she saying you'd have to do all 3 of those?
No, he says those are your opportunities to stop this.
Oh, because
he will fail the one.
The last 2.
He does. If we're interpreting that like Blake did, which I do as well too, then yeah.
And she says at the very end, now if you have failed all the others, that is your final chance at redemption.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he does get redemption at Jakar's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Man, his predictions keep on going. We got to get this guy on a sedative here. There is a Chrysalis version of Sinclair coming. Yes, actually.
There would have been, yeah.
Well, there is.
Well, I know, but my point to that was the original plan was probably still in place when this was filmed, because it's not.
This was filmed later.
Because this was 12. Production order 12.
Oh, it could be.
They knew from JMS's biography, they knew pretty early on in season 1 there were problems.
Yeah.
Because this is halfway through that they filmed this.
Yeah, roughly halfway. Mm-hmm.
It just makes it seem like that. I don't know. I'm not arguing with the guy's autobiography. I'm just saying that it seems early to have made that final choice.
Well, and he doesn't give a full dates on that either. And I don't know the way that they end this episode with Sinclair and Satai. I don't know if the actual plan at this point was to get rid of or write him off or not. But in terms of will he get Chrysalis?
Yeah.
In the original plan, he was not going to. And we'll talk about this when we do our bonus episode. But the original plan was Delenn, who at that point was not going to be gendered, would transition to female, and then they would just mate. He wasn't going to change at all.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. There will be another version of Delenn coming, and it may or may not have all the current Delenn memories. No, it's going to be the full Delenn. But
the question to Kosh was about the prophecy.
It was.
Already kind of talked about.
Mm-hmm, it was. This whole thing with the assassination is to get back at the Minbari. I think it's more that Earth is going in a direction they don't want it to go.
Garibaldi will survive. Yes.
Yes, because he's in the season 2 credits.
Yes, he's got plot armor. He's good.
Londo will continue to be awesome and become Jakar's friend.
Well,
it's going to be
frenemy. I'll go with frenemy.
I think they do. And, this whole show has started with the premise that, because I think Londo said pretty early on that, he was going to die at Jakar's hand at one point.
Yeah.
Yep. He's had dreams of it all his life.
He's had dreams of that. So the destiny and the fate of these 2 characters are intertwined from the very start. And I think they do eventually become friends. I mean, there's the scene when Sheridan and Delenn get married and they take Jakar's synthetic eye and put it in their bedroom, and you got Londo and Jakar sitting there in the White Star watching it.
That's
honestly did not need to be reminded of this.
I haven't watched that episode in a while, but thank you.
You're welcome. So I mean,
uneasy friendship, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
at the very end, I'm fairly sure Londo refers to him as friend as Jakar strangles him to death, and Londo strangles him to death. All right, let's move on to Nicole here. Are Devereaux and his guys with Home Guard? Probably. I mean, it's all interconnected with what Clark is doing. He has multiple different wings of stuff he's working on.
Are the Vorlons the creepy spider murder ships?
Again, I think this is their little echo chamber. One person said it, so they're all in on it now.
Yeah.
But no,
yeah,
they don't look the same.
They're really going to
kick
themselves years down the road when they realize that they just completely forgot about signs and portents.
Well, not even that. They forgot about Mind War. A Vorlon ship shows up and blasts the crap. Oh, not Mind War. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about Deathwalker.
Deathwalker.
The Vorlon ship shows up and blows her up, and they don't look anything like the Shadows.
Well, we've seen Kosh's personal transport too, but yeah, they're creepy, just in a different way.
They're definitely bio like the Vorlon ships, because they're both very ancient ships. But
and I can see where they're coming from. For somebody that's not into sci-fi, they would just recognize certain similarities about them compared to everyone else's ships. I get where they're coming from on that, but no.
I don't know what this next sentence means.
Yeah, I mean,
how are the Vorlons involved? Because the Minbari Vorlons are a strange pairing of knowledge.
I mean, the Vorlons are shepherding the Minbari. That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is Kosh protecting the Shadows? God, no.
Nope. He's the exact opposite.
If only, the only thing I'll say about that is I don't think he wants the entire galaxy to know about the Shadows. He's keeping that a little bit closer to the vest, and being careful about who he tells. But no, he's not protecting the Shadows.
Well, and so are the Minbari, and we'll learn that later when Delenn finally has that conversation with Jakar. Is they knew the Shadows were back. They knew the Shadows were working with the Centauri, but they weren't ready.
Yep.
So they didn't want to say anything. They sacrificed millions of lives to save billions.
Mm-hmm. And Jakar understands that. He doesn't accept the apology, but he understands it. The one thing too that they're doing this because Kosh is the only Vorlon they've seen, but they're equating Kosh's motives with the Vorlon's motives, and we know the motives are different. Especially when Kosh ingratiates himself to Sheridan more down the road. Kosh does not want the cycle to continue. The Vorlons do. The Vorlons are okay with them and the Shadows duking it out every few thousand years and calling it a day. Kosh wants something different, but they haven't seen that yet. Now when they get to Kosh 2.0, we're back to the Vorlons.
That guy's a dick.
Is Kosh protecting Sinclair?
He's not going out of his way to not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like you can really say that he did. Now, maybe he would have if Sinclair had stuck around, but
I think he absolutely protects Sheridan to a point where he sacrifices his life to support Sheridan's efforts.
Yeah, right. Will Delenn be taking over when she comes out of the Chrysalis? No.
Well, a few years down the road.
Yeah, I suppose.
That's a great thing with prophecies. No matter what, you can make them work. It's like Ancient Aliens. Let's see. What is the destiny? Well, that's a long conversation that we've already kind of hit on several times, but depends on who you ask. For the Shadows and the Vorlons, their destiny is to continue, like I said, to duke it out for every 1,000 years or so. But we shall see. Will Sinclair ever find out what Delenn wanted to tell him? Yes. Because we find out when he goes to Minbar, he gets the same information that Sheridan got when in season 2, the first episode, when Lanier tells Sheridan what's up. So Sinclair gets the same information. And also Sinclair gets a note from himself down the road too, which helps out as well. So her prediction, Londo does have a good heart and conscience. His concern for Garibaldi proves it, along with his remorse for the Narn. Yeah, sure. I mean, Londo is a torn figure. I mean, he is definitely somebody who wants to be a decent person, but also is shackled by tradition and shackled by, his culture. So, yeah.
And it's the trade-off view. Oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's a difficult thing of wanting glory and greatness for your people, but having to balance that with how you get it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very big a key for Londo too. Is he doesn't want greatness for himself. He couldn't care less. He just wants his people to be where they used to be.
Oh, there's one more question from Nicole that I think is worth talking about there. It's the shady guard that backstabs Garibaldi. I forgot his name, if he is ever even given one, but does he ever get found out and get his comeuppance?
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
And everybody's favorite fan, Lou Welch, tries to give him a beatdown, but Sheridan won't let him.
I love Lou. Let's see. And then her last prediction, Kosh is shady. No, Kosh is not shady. The Vorlons are shady.
Is shady.
Yeah. The Vorlons are shady. Kosh is just not ready to reveal all his secrets yet. That is a difference. Jessi actually had a question this week. What will happen with Delenn and her transformation?
She will need a bottle of Head and Shoulders.
I love when she goes. She goes to Ivanova.
That's so funny.
With her hair just in tatters. Like, what am I supposed to do?
You're gonna need 100 strokes every night, Delenn.
Yep. That is me with my daughter whenever my wife is unavailable.
My 6-year-old daughter got a brush stuck in her hair a few days ago and came to me, and just the look on her face, the pure dread was great. Let's see. Let's move on to prediction for Jessi. The fact that Londo participated in the murder of 10,000 Narns will come out and be a major problem for Londo. Yes, but he's gonna murder a lot more Narn before it's all said and done.
Let's say this is just the start. He'll be fine.
Wait until the mass drivers come out.
Yeah.
Delenn won't look different. Sorry,
Jessi. That's a big no-go.
Sinclair is going to either die or leave. Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head on the second one of them.
Yeah.
The marriage is Sinclair's exit plot. No. He won't make it through season 2. No.
Emily's got them all wrapped around this secret marriage, which actually JMS posted in the Usenets back in the day that was absolutely a red herring, and he did that for fun. But they are definitely still wrapped up on that.
So at some point, can we tell Emily that JMS was just fucking with her?
I gotta go back and find where in the Usenet he said it, but basically he's like, you guys were so worried about that, and it meant nothing. Let's see. Okay, that was it for Jessi, right? Yep. So Emily's first question was the VP on the assassination. Same question, answered already.
We talked about Kosh already.
Yep.
Does Kosh have knowledge of the future and technology to help Sinclair get there? Sure does.
Well, this is what I've wondered. So, I mean, thinking forward to War Without End, when you've got Babylon 5 back in time, they never establish how old the Vorlons are.
True.
And I've almost wondered if Kosh wasn't one of the Vorlons on B4.
Well, I almost guarantee he is, just because the knowledge he has and the interactions he has. I think the Vorlons are, if not immortal, close to immortal at this point. They're energy beings. They can basically, as long as they're not, killed by a shadow, they're going to be around for a while. So I wouldn't doubt it at all, which explains why him and Kosh 2.0 are on the Minbari battle cruiser at the Battle of the Line, everything else. They're just kind of continuing on with the plan as has been.
Yeah, because so basically to Kosh, this isn't prophecy. This is what happened.
Been there, done that, which is again goes in the time travel, which we'll talk about more when we get to War Without End, but it's all a closed loop up until a point.
Oh, Jessi's going to love that episode.
Yes. Does Catherine die? No.
Eventually, I'm sure.
Actually, yeah, I mean, well, of old age, but actually, we never see Catherine Sakai again in the show. However, she does show up in the expanded universe, and it's supposedly canon because JMS said everything is canon, but she goes back in time and meets up with Valen Sinclair, and they do get married. So that does happen. I couldn't tell you what the story was because I'm blanking on the name of it, but somehow she goes back in time and he meets up with Sinclair again because we have to have happy endings. Do Delenn and Kosh know each other before the creation of B5? Yes. Yes, they do. We'll get to that episode or that movie. Her prediction's the same as everybody else's. VP was in on it. Yes, he was.
She's just because the guy gets the flu and gets off the ship before it goes boom. I mean, come on, folks.
Andrew's questions. Are the shadow figures the Vorlon's true form? No.
Nope.
Will Londo still return the favor to Morden since he is uncomfortable with the Narn being wiped out? He'll be forced into his little favor, but yes, he will. But he'll also give Morden what he deserves down the road. Who is Morden? Morden is a human who was captured by the shadows on Zahadum because they mistakenly landed on Zahadum and found the shadows and was turned into their slave.
And he is a meat puppet.
He's a meat puppet. And when he gets nuked, he continues to be a meat puppet. And also Sheridan's wife's a meat puppet. We're not there yet. And a guy who looks like Mark Twain. Those are the three.
He does.
Is he a miscellaneous race we haven't seen yet? Nope, he's human. Mm-hmm. And we're flat out told that. I mean, JMS doesn't hide it. When he comes on board, hey, your identicard's a little old. Yeah, I've been on the rim. Mm-hmm. That's about it. What happened with Sinclair at the bottom of the line? Well, you're going to find out next episode, Andrew.
Yeah.
And prediction, Londo is told to take credit for the Narn issue being taken care of. Londo's character is about to get a lot more complex. I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get a lot more.
Because Londo's taking credit for all, because the shadows have worked at Londo's behest, basically.
Mm-hmm. And they have made it very clear to him that he's not supposed to talk about them. Take all the credit, Londo. All the credit. Okay, anything else you guys want to talk about with Chrysalis?
Yeah, there was a discussion between Sinclair and Jakar that I thought was really prophetic. It really foreshadowed both turns of Jakar's story coming up. I thought that was a really cool scene.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about, we're at a turning point and a crossroads, he says. And he says, you guys are like abused children. You're lashing out when you don't have to do that. That's not the right way to go about it. And It's like you can be the peacemaker if you want to be. And it's just interesting because Jakar goes through both of those things. He gets worse and then he gets a lot better and becomes a peacemaker.
Yeah, and Mike, you've said from the beginning that Jakar is one of your favorite characters, but I think his transition from just meddler to religious icon and savior of the galaxy is a nice little arc.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with the evil character redemption story because I feel like it's done so poorly in so many different forms of media, but Jakar does that story arc so very well.
Yeah.
And it's because he takes every step along the journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's the going deeper before pulling yourself back out again that really gets it.
And he's one of the strongest actors in the company too, so he can pull that off where sometimes you have that given to an actor who just cannot handle the weight of that.
Next week we're going to go ahead and talk about the entire season 1 in a recap, and if you want to check that out live, you can do so on December 11th, Sunday at 8 o'clock Central Time. To remember what time that is, you can go to our YouTube channel, and it's up there right now. You can click the notify button, and it will tell you when we go live. If you can't check us out live, the Season 1 recap episode will drop next week at the normal time, and then a week after that, we will dive into Season 2 with Points of Departure. So until 2 weeks from now, when we talk Points of Departure, I've been Scott, and with me has been...
Blake.
And Kevin.
This is like being nibbled to death by... What are those earth creatures called? Feathers, long bill, webbed feet. Go quack. Cats. Like being nibbled to death by